Continuing our draft strategy conversation with the sports handicapper known on Twitter as Old Man Who Bets, Geoff Sheasby in studio. Geoff, we're talking about what we can get in the middle rounds. We know rounds 1 through 4 are always going to improve your team, but sometimes you find yourself in the middle of the round, or middle rounds, I should say, trying to draft for need instead of value. And year after year, we see those second-tier players moving up, making a major leap to become an elite player. So what are some of the mid-round guys you see making that jump to the first tier?
Yeah, great question. Let's start in the 6th round here. A guy I'm looking at is Robbie Anderson. Robbie obviously has some big game potential. You know, he's been inconsistent over the course of his year, but this also kind of doubles down just on my hypothesis that I'm a bull on the Jets this year.
That's okay. You're in New York.
I'm in New York. Exactly.
It's the new helmets, really, isn't it? That's what's
definitely, and that new green that they've gone to.
Right. Now it's a hunter green, so they're just tougher.
Yeah, nothing to do with Robbie's actual performance on the field.
Right, or his maturation and the routes that he's running, which are different than what he ran in the first year.
Yeah, exactly. But when we look at him last year, he had 94 targets in 14 games. We extrapolate that over 16 games, we're looking at 100 plus. So the volume is there. Darnold last year, in the last 4 games of the season, was a top 10 quarterback based on QBR. And this offense has improved in the offseason. They got Le'Veon Bell to take some pressure off of these receivers. Anua is healthy. They added Crowder. So all of a sudden, secondaries need to worry about people other than Robbie Anderson. So I think his consistency is going to increase this year. He's definitely a bit of a boom or bust guy, but with a little bit more consistency, I think he can make some serious noise.
I think you're seeing the chance. You're seeing a guy growing in his route running. That was always the issue. He was always a burner. He only had the 9 route that he was running. This year, in the preseason, we saw that great back shoulder throw from Darnold to him. So their timing is clearly on. He wants something to happen with Robbie Anderson because he knows Anderson is the guy that can break tackles and make big plays. You want chunk plays, and Anderson's the guy to get that.
Yeah, Anderson's the guy. I mean, I think Darnold had a 75% completion percentage in the preseason. Small sample size.
We'll take that. We'll take that.
That's looking pretty good.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, speaking of quarterbacks that have had a good preseason, or at least have their eyes on what's going to happen for the rest of the season, maybe not as much with his arm, but with his legs. How do you feel about Lamar Jackson?
I feel great about Lamar Jackson, and mainly because of his legs, as you said it. Of course, he's a household name. He's a polarizing player. Is he a terrible passer? The jury's still out there, but he's a fantastic runner. And I think that those rush yards last year, just over 600, close to 700 in maybe 7 games. We extrapolate that to a full season. He's going over 1,000 yards easily. Harbaugh has already said he's going to take a no pitch count there. We might see 17 carries a game from Lamar Jackson.
17 carries a game from the quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. And last year he topped 100 yards once, 90 twice, 65 3 times. I say yes, please to all of those.
Yeah. That's the thing is, we're constantly looking at passing yards as the evaluation metric for a quarterback. But in fantasy football, you get rushing yards. You get a point for every 10 yards rushing, not 25 yards per passing yard. So you're clearly, at a greater advantage when you have a quarterback that can extend plays, extend series with his legs, and make defenders miss.
Yeah, and he's certainly a little bit of a risky play, especially with an injury concern. But if he can get those fumbles down, keep the ball in play, for a 9th or 10th rounder with a guy with a pretty high floor and an even higher ceiling, I think you could do far worse.
We're talking about the sleepers, and sleepers are not guys you're going to be getting in the first 5 rounds. You're talking about guys that you're probably going to pick up in those mid rounds, but these are the key players that can expand the depth of your roster and make your roster almost unbeatable. Sometimes you have to go a little deeper into the roster of the NFL teams as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you're going to do that with a receiver, you want to make sure it's a receiver that has a great quarterback that spreads the ball around.
Yeah, and that takes us right over to the Packers. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is one of the best gunslingers in the league. And something I really like about him, obviously last year he was banged up. 2017 he was also banged up. And when we look at 2016 and 2015, they had 3 receivers who were absolutely eating. 2017 was something like 1,200 yards, 800 yards, 600 yards.
For the top 3 in that order.
For the top 3 receivers. The year before that it was like 800, 600, but all of them scored 6+ televisions, TDs,
yes,
touchdowns, we'll be watching on that television. So what does that tell me? That means that their top 3 receivers can all eat. And that brings us to Geronimo Allison. Geronimo Allison, super fast. He's already going to be in the slot this year, so as a PPR weapon, super strong. We look at his last year starts. He's 20 for 303. That was actually his most yards ever in the league. But those are some pretty good numbers through 4 weeks. We've got 5 for 69 in week 1, 6 for 64 in week 2, 2 for 76, and 6 for 80.
Yeah.
If we extrapolate that to a full season, that's 76 catches, over 1,000 yards, and obviously, hopefully 5 to 8 touchdowns.
Well, and that's the question is, when you have those 3 guys, MVS would be the other guy on the outside. You don't know which one is going to eat, but I also feel like Aaron Rodgers used to rely a lot more on the tight end. Jimmy Graham isn't running the same routes, and it seems like they're using the slot to fill the void of attacking the linebackers with the slot as opposed with the tight end. So maybe that's where this guy comes in as an advantage. Yeah,
I completely agree. And I think, the targets that Allison's seeing aren't going to be the same targets that Jimmy's going to be seeing. To your point about different route running, I think Jimmy's way more of that red zone threat, where Geronimo with that 15-yard per catch average, I think is hopefully going to be scoring from 30 out, and then really racking up those fantasy points.
You know what? That's an efficient use of catches.
Yeah.
But drafts are going a lot deeper, if you've noticed. I mean, we used to have 14-round drafts. Now we've got 23-round drafts. And when you're scrambling late to try to add a guy, sometimes can get a little bit nerve-wracking when you look at guys whose average draft position is like 150 plus. So who are some of those 150 plus draft positions that you might want to target and take a flyer on?
Yeah, I think we can find some value in the 150 range. That's 12th or 13th round, depending on 10 or 12-person league, with a tight end named Jordan Reed.
A very familiar name.
We've heard that name before. Everybody knows he's an injury threat. But Redskins beat writer said that he's way stronger than last year. He feels more explosive a year after surgery on both of those big toes. And fun fact, he's posted top 12 tight end numbers in 50% of his games, which is better than Ertz, it's better than Olsen, it's better than Hunter Henry. So when he's on the field, he's performing. Will he be on the field? Who knows? But anything outside the top 3 tight ends, you are potentially streaming week to week anyway. So why not take a guy in the 12th round who, if he's healthy, you don't need to stream for the rest of the season, and he could be putting up numbers not quite with Kelsey, not quite with Ertz, not quite with Kittle, but certainly very competitive.
And enough to win you a week, and we know in fantasy football, 1 week can be the difference of making the postseason or not making the postseason. Interesting, you brought up reports from websites and from reporters. You brought up the Ravens reporter, the Redskins reporter. How do you balance the metrics of the analytics with the information that's coming in from what the players and the coaches are saying? Because they might not be saying telling the reporters the truth either.
Yeah, for sure. And the beat writer here for the Redskins, I think he's going to be a little bit more accurate than, say, a Bill Belichick, who will never tell you anything ever. And if he does, you can't trust that. So I think it's a little bit of an art and science. Ultimately, I will rest on the data. But if things are already trending up, again, with him being an absolute stud when he is healthy, combined with him being hopefully stronger. And then the data to back it up, he is great when he is on the field. That's something, especially in a 13th round, that I'm willing to bet on. All
right, real quick, we're not telling you to draft any of these guys in the final 2 rounds because that's left for kickers and defenses only. But one final guy, we've only got a few minutes here. John Brown with the Bills.
Yeah, John Brown with the Bills.
He's bounced around.
He's bounced around.
You think he's found a home here?
I hope so. I think when we look last year, he had 715 yards. I believe something like 650 of those were between weeks 1 through 9 before Lamar Jackson was throwing the ball. So he was pretty good in those first 9 weeks. We look back at 2015, John Brown, again, he needs a guy with a big arm. He had Carson Palmer, he had Joe Flacco, now he's got Josh Allen. 2015, he had over 1,000 yards. So now with a big arm and Josh Allen, who knows?
And a Bills team that's going to be trailing in a lot of games, so they're probably going to be throwing the ball quite a bit.
He loves to run that 9 route, straight and fast, and just beat the guy over the top. Allen can get him the ball, for a 163rd pick in the draft. You could do it.
Take a flyer.
Yeah.
That's a look at the sleepers. Make sure you check out the futures bets and that you should be targeting this year, and the handcuff pickups that you should be targeting in the fantasy drafts as well. For Geoff Sheasby, I'm Steve Overmyer. This is Fanalysis.